Hi everyone, I'm Harvey from SoForce's Managed Threat Response team. Today, I would like to talk about threat hunting and why it's no longer just a want, but a necessity in today's cybersecurity landscape. So let's look at the trends that's happening today. As you know, everyone is going online. Every business has to be online to survive. That's just the reality of things. The attack surface is expanding, and unfortunately, that's where the attackers are also gaining ground. There's also a very big problem of the ever-present security gap, right? The security skills gap, I would say. A lot of times that it's really hard to find someone that actually understands security or even understands everything from a malicious payload or behaviors of attack. So, and the problem here is there's always a problem of the confidence in security, right? As you can see here, right, this is, even though this report was done by Accenture back in 2019, it pretty much is accurate today. So as you can see here, it's predicted that in year 2023, which is just 2 years away, right, that the confidence for security is dropping down to 25%. So here's the thing here is no organization here can prevent a breach. That is the mindset today. So let's look at the actual threat landscape that's happening around us right now. So let me bring you back in time. So back in the day, threat actors usually were not that dangerous in that sense, right? They're all usually just people trying to prove themselves. They're just doing things, having fun. They're just doing joke wares, trying to prove themselves by saying, I managed to access this data, which is off limits to everyone. That was basically the trend back then. Unfortunately, today, we have organized criminal groups, right? They basically run like an organization, right? Like any big organization. They do have a team leader, they do have a coder. Interestingly, they also have network administrators and so on and so forth. That's how organized these criminal groups are today. In fact, some of these components are even outsourced, right? There are some providers in the dark web that provide certain services, like botnet services, for example, that you can actually buy off. And some of these organized groups work in tandem with these outsourced suppliers. And why is that the case, right? Why is it that we move on from like just a solo tractor trying to have fun to kind of like a business model here? Well, it's because of profit here. So as you can see here, right, that the cybercrime profits soared to 1.5 trillion, and this report was in 2018. In a little bit more recent, 2020, right, it has reached 3.5 billion in 2019. So as you can see here, it's just a trend that's ongoing. So it is a very profitable business. And as with any business, people will always put in efforts to make it better, right? And that's just how it is with even cyber crimes. So let's touch a little bit on this concept of pyramid of pain. I'm sure all you security folks out there know about this concept here. But let me just kind of like do a little recap for everyone. So basically what a pyramid of pain is how much pain do you cause the threat actor when you block this particular component. So as you can see from this pyramid of pain, looking at just IPs and hashes, which is very common in IOCs, is really simple for a threat actor. It doesn't cause them much pain. Why? Because today, right, since they are running like a business, they have teams at the back end, they have, as mentioned, outsourced services. They, at a snap of a finger, they can change the IP. At a snap of a finger, I can ask my team, recompile this malware, and I get a new hash value. And that's how quickly they can do it, right, within seconds. So we need to look further up the pyramid today. We need to look out for everything from the tools and the TTPs to really cause kind of pain to the tractors here. One thing to also note is tractors are also aware of this. It's not just us defenders. And this is proven through all the different sources that we can see. So as you can see here, tractors have actually created all these marketplaces or even dumps within the dark web sites. So you have everything from credential dumps, credentials for sale. No, in this example here of Genesis Store, this is actually a store that sells access to computers. So basically what they do is they collect information about computer, everything from all the websites that this computer have access to, passwords, cookie information, and basically what happens is when you buy this, you basically can kind of clone out that computer since you have the cookies, you even have the IP information, right? So you kind of can clone yourself to pretend to be that particular machine, and that's how effective it is. Bear in mind that even this website is automated. It is not just a bunch of characters sitting there collecting all this information and posting it on this store. Genesis Store is actually managed automatically by robots, right? So basically what the bots do is they look at the machine that they have, what applications do they have access to, right? Everything from Dropbox, whatever is useful. If that particular machine has very useful tools on them, right? Access to certain websites that are exclusive, for example, the price goes up, and that is done automatically. So basically, that's how the tractors have advanced, right? They have advanced to collaborating with robots to basically do their business. We even have websites that sell, what we call fully undetectable malware, or FUDs for short. So you can see these two examples here, right? Of these are websites they're actually selling ransomwares, and they even guarantee you that they are undetectable by today's anti-malware vendors. So that's how advanced it is. And you can even pay them and tell them, hey, please customize this malware to do this and put on this message for me. They will do it for you. And this is what I meant by outsourced services. We even have websites that actually sell exploits. So even though they state here that, oh, this is for educational purposes, but you know, let's be realistic here. I can go there, buy this exploit, and use it for malicious use. They are not going to care, right? And that's how it is. You can just go online, collaborate with any of these groups, build your own malware, and start your campaign. Another trend that Sophos is seeing is what we call living off the land attacks. So what this means is the tractors have also known, right, as a reference to the pyramid of pain, they know that today everyone's really very advanced. They pick up hashes really quickly. They pick up IPs very quickly. So I can't use my tools against you. So what do? No, they use whatever tools are already available on the system. So if you guys are familiar, right, like for example, PSExec, PSKill, these are tools that are readily available on a Windows platform. These tools, no, originally, right, the intent is more for administrators. They are very powerful tools. They allow administrators to run remotely any command they wish, or even kill any process they want. However, attractors have also known about this. Since these tools are really available on the system, and it is very unlikely that any security controls would block them since they are valid administrative tools, the tractor uses these tools against you. We have seen attacks that use PSKill to try to terminate security controls, followed by PSExec to basically run everything from CNC commands to downloading of their backdoors. So those are the things that happens, and that's the reality of things, that tractors are advancing their methods. It's not just the tools that they are doing, right? Even the procedures they're doing. So as you can see in this example here of this research article, they mentioned something called triple extortion. So what is that? So back in the day, when a ransomware attack happens, all it does, it encrypts your data and then you get a note to say, please pay this amount and we'll decrypt your data. So that is one level of extortion. Then we see interactors starting to do what we call double extortion, which is if you do not pay us to decrypt your data, we will post your information to the public. We will let the whole world see everything from your accounts, your business dealings, and so on and so forth. That was the double extortion technique. And today, we are seeing tractors even advancing further to what we call a triple extortion, which is basically if you don't pay up, we will DDoS you. It's basically to kind of convince you, right, to come back to them to negotiate to pay. So this is unfortunate that even tractors have evolved their methods. As mentioned, they are like a business. They want to make a profit, and they will chase for it. So here's the thing that we also need to take note. I'm very sure everyone heard of AI and how AI will help the security solutions. But the fact remains, and we need to be aware of this, it's not just on the defenders, even the attackers here. So here's two articles that I picked up that basically tractors are also using AI, which makes sense. Think about it. Would you, would the tractor be using a team just to scour the internet for vulnerable servers? That's not what they're doing. They're doing some form of automation, right? So that's the thing here. Tractors are using some form of AI, right, to basically fight against what we use, which is AI. The only difference here is the tractors have evolved themselves to embrace this collaboration, right? They have used AI tools to churn out malwares, to kind of detect behaviors, detect vulnerabilities, for example, weak systems, but they also use their human expertise to break into your system. And basically, as you've seen, for example, the triple extortion method, there's basically a human there that thought of the idea. So that's how they have actually collaborated. And that brings about a very big question. If the attackers are doing that, why aren't we, the defenders? Why aren't we embracing this collaboration and not just solely depending on AI and hoping that the artificial intelligence of our cybersecurity solutions will do everything for us? Realistically, that's not going to happen. So I brought up this article here, right? And this article is basically to help you guys be a little bit more focused on this. Is that based on Verizon's 2021 DBI or data breach investigation, it really shows that there's no such thing as a safe industry, right? I've spoken to a few customers here, and some of them have the assumption that, oh, I'm not a big bank, for example, I wouldn't get attacked. But unfortunately, that's not the case. We have seen some small companies ever get hit by ransomware attacks, and they were pretty advanced. Everyone is a target. The other thing to note is tractors are really moving fast, right? They don't really spend a lot of time within lateral movement, for example. So take for example, right, the Hafnian attack, right? So let's go back in time and look at this attack and study the entire timeline of it. So back in October 1st, right, that is when this Cheng Da guy started the investigation. He started his research on this exchange, looking up whether there's such a vulnerability. It was only about 2 months, right, where he actually discovered this particular vulnerability, and they have tagged it with this CVE, right, the CVE 2021-26855, which we today know as the Hafnium activity. However, if you can see the gap here, right, it's only in January 6th that Microsoft acknowledged that of this vulnerability. So about 1 month later, does Microsoft say, yes, this vulnerability exists on my Exchange server. In March 1st, that's when Microsoft disclosed of the Hafnium activity. So you can see here, there's this huge gap there, right? Almost 2 months of when they acknowledged the vulnerability, not even when the threat researcher discovered it, or when they acknowledged it to the day that they disclosed that of this hacking activity. It was about 2 months. And further research actually shows that the very first possible exploitation of this vulnerability was way back in November 2020. So you can see here, the tractor basically had this huge window to attack environments. When did Microsoft release the patch? Well, you can see here, the patch was released in March the 2nd, 2021. So if you look back at the timeline, then the question comes about, how big is your window of exposure? Right? Since it is possible that the hacking activity started way back in November, do you just patch your system and pray for the best? Or do you patch your system and start to investigate back from the day you patch all the way back to November? Were there any suspicious activities happening in your environment? I think that's a very important question that we need to ask ourselves. So here are a few more examples here, right? As you can see here, no, BitLocker ransomware, right? As you know, BitLocker is something available on all Windows machines, and they're actually a tool to help us encrypt our systems to protect them. Unfortunately, in this case, it was used against us. So this is a pretty good example of using a tool that's already available on your system against you. We have also seen in this Epsilon Raid, right? Another ransomware, but in this case, it uses PowerShell scripts. Basically, it doesn't really use any payloads. Basically, all this, bare bones ransomware does is all the functionalities are running off PowerShell, which I mentioned earlier on, living off the land attacks, pretty much undetectable because most security products or most users trust these tools because they are inbuilt Windows tools. Yep. A little bit more recent, right? We've seen the proxy shell exchange exploit, and again, the Conti group was really quick in using this exploit to launch their ransomware attacks, right? Something a little bit more interesting, which is from Sophos's own research, we actually discovered on one of our customers a very stealthy ransomware operator, right? They kind of use something, what you call DLL side loading, kind of to hide their tracks. Well, but this basically shows that, again, they are using a lot of this, not just a combination of exploits, but also certain things like living off the land, basically the DLLs within a system to kind of like run this type of stealthy attacks. So that's how much the tractors have evolved. So let's come back to this. How about us, the cyber defenders? How have we evolved? Right. So a little quote from one of my buddies here in the managed threat response team, right, which I really, really think it's valid, that human experience and the ability to respond are vital part of any security solution. So there's really only so much machines can do, right? Machines are designed to look out for patterns, collect data as quickly as possible, right? That's what machines do, and they are really great at that. But sometimes it's really difficult to ask a machine to, can you see if this is bad? If there's no baseline for the machine is not going to be able to tell you that. A machine still needs some form of baseline to and build an entire table, right, in a sense, to kind of know what is good and what's bad. But from a human approach, when you look at it, your gut feeling sometimes to tells you something else. And I think that's where human experience comes into play. I think this is further reinforced in a report that I read in FSI Sec. So in this report, it was mentioned that you kind of need that right mix of automation and human intelligence to really build a very strong security controls, right? Basically a security program in place. right? So as can see here, they also mention here that no cyber still need human, right? And I think with my further explanation of it, tractors are also doing that combination. Tractors are not just relying on their AI to basically attack environments here, but they use it to open the door. But they are using humans to do what we call hands-on keyboard, living on the land attacks here. So kind of we need to do the same to basically defend ourselves. So I've been talking about all those concepts here. So what is threat hunting? So I would say, let's sum it up, right? Assume breach mindset. So threat hunting is really different. It's not just about monitoring for alerts. It's basically assuming that you already been breached. For example, right, you look at a report and you understood, oh, okay, this is new attack. So let's go back in time and think of Hafnium, for example. And you read the report about Hafnium, what do you do? Do you just say, oh, okay, yeah, I'm safe? No, that's not how threat hunting works. Basically, threat hunting, what we will do is we look at the report and we'll look, okay, these are the type of things I noticed, or basically the research talks about that Hafnium activity does. I will go back and look at my environment. Do I see such activities happening? So basically, that's the assume breach mindset, right? I assume I'm breach. I'm looking for something suspicious. It could be based on my own um, ideas of what I want to look out for. Like for example, suspicious logins during our office hours. That's a very simple one. Or looking at this type of threat research, right, from external threat intelligence, and kind of like use that within my own environment. And most importantly, the most important thing is not looking out for IOCs. As mentioned earlier on, IOCs are really easy to change today, right? They are good indicators, but the thing here is they get stale really, really quickly. So the main thing to look out for is indicators of attack, looking out for that pattern of this particular campaign. So this picture here, I think everyone's seen this picture here, right? Of a SOC. Everyone assumes that's how it looks like. A room full of monitors and a bunch of people staring at those monitors. And everyone's solution back then was, let's all build a SOC. And I'm not saying that's wrong, that's right. Right? That's a right approach. That's the idea here. We need humans to look at all this information. However, I think it got blurred, you know, through the times, and a lot of people assume that to build a SOC, what I need is to buy the most expensive tools I can find. Right? They buy a really expensive SIM, a expensive saw. They are great. They are great tools. But again, that's the main thing. The key word is they are tools. You need the team to be able to understand what am I looking out for, right? A SIM cannot magically collect and tell you I'm under attack. A SIM is just collecting data from different points, from could be your endpoint, your firewall, your network devices, or even your login or system events from the servers. That's all the SIM is doing. It's basically collecting all these really quickly into a single place and correlate all this information together, but it's also based on a human to look at all this information and say, is this suspicious activity or is it just a one-off, right? So that's the main misconception I would like to bring about, that we need to change that perception of what a SOC should be. And even today, right, everyone is evolving the SOC to include threat hunting, right? Not just about alert monitoring, not just about what my tools are bringing to me, but adding on the capabilities of hunting for threats proactively. So a survey by Sophos, right, has even proven this further, that you guys can see here, we have did a survey across different countries, and we actually asked them this question: what are your plans to incorporate human led threat hunts? So as you can see, majority, right, some already doing it, which is fantastic, but many have plans to implement it. So I would like to use this diagram here to actually explain that process. And I really love this diagram. I've been using this diagram for quite a couple of years already. So as you can see here, data, right, on the top left, just empty white dots. That is basically what data is, right? Data is useful, right? Everyone says that, which is true. But if you don't convert the data to information, you don't connect the dots to turn it into knowledge, right? And then you do that foresight to kind of understand, no, that's where your insight comes in. And then you convert, and you connect the dots and understand, oh, okay, this is what this data means, and that's your wisdom. And from then on, you can come up with the impact. I think this basically is a great way to illustrate what I'm talking about here. So your sim and saw probably are great at collecting the data. They probably can help you do a bit of correlation, give you the information and the knowledge there. But I think you really need your team, right? Your SOC team, your threat hunting team, to look at all this information and kind of convert it into usable, effective impact. I bring up this table here, and I think a lot of you security folks here know this, the MITRE ATT&CK framework, right? Everyone more or less knows about this. But why am I bringing this up here? So the thing here is a lot of the security folks here, they understand what the MITRE ATT&CK framework is for. Basically, it helps you to tag, right? Um, when I see this, okay, what sort of ID this belongs to, and this falls under, for example, the discovery stage of an attack, right? And that's really useful. But the thing here is, as the threat hunting team, it's also about looking out at what I'm seeing in my environment and figuring out this behavior, what ID does it match up to in the MITRE ATT&CK framework? Why is that important? One is to help you to kind of like streamline and understand is is this at what attack is happening here, at what stage of the attack is happening here. So why is this important? Because let's say, for example, I discover a particular behavior, I mapped it to a MITRE ATT&CK ID, and I've seen that, oh, this is in lateral movement, right? That the threat hunting team shouldn't stop there, because identifying that it's lateral movement means that this particular attack has already gone through the stages from initial access all the way down to discovery, right? That's not right, right? If the threat hunting team is so focused on just blocking, right? Since that's what they discovered and try to block the lateral movement, they are not going to stop the tractor here because the tractor has already got a foothold in your environment. They already have the initial access, right? They already have the discovery and all and so on and so forth. So as a threat hunting team, it's really important to identify what are the hints from what I've discovered today. I'm trying to link it back upwards. Because end of the day, it's more important to block an attack at the earlier stage of the attack, right? Basically, whatever is earlier is basically covering up your security gaps. For example, right, the attack could have not come from this particular machine. This particular machine could be doing the lateral movement. But for all you know, after deeper investigation, you discover that that machine got infected through a server that was not patched. And that's the initial access. So you handling just on that machine is not going to help you much because the tractor has access through that server and they'll probably use that server to do other forms of attacks. So, so that's the importance of understanding the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So as mentioned earlier, right, about the window of exposure, the threat hunting team needs to be really aware of this, right? It's not about when the vendor releases the patch, right? Your investigation should begin from the day you patch backwards all the way to when was the most likely possible first date of exploitation, right? Because that's your window exposure, and your threat hunting team needs to understand this and look out for any hints or any suspicious activities that happen within this window, and and see if they are connected back to that particular exploit. If they do, then they need to basically remove all persistence that the tractor has already injected into the environment. So another thing about the skill sets. So all here we're talking about is basically skill sets that are required. right? Another skill set that is really useful for any SOC team is basically an individual or a team, which is even better, to basically do what you call attack analysis, right? Understanding how this payload behaves, for example, right? So again, I'm not talking about hashes or IPs. I'm talking about the behaviors. Does this payload, what does it do? Does it try to change the system registries? Does it try to use PowerShell from that point onwards? All these type of behaviors. Those are basically expertise that are required. Even better if the team is able to decipher malware payloads, right? See how the script is running. What is this script trying to do, right? We have seen many characters try to hide their code using base64, right? So does your team know? Like when I look at this, I need to maybe use everything from 7-zip to decrypt it, followed by a base64 decryption, which actually happens. That's the basic skill set and experience that's required. Using all those information, of course, you generate all your usual IOCs, which are useful for current threat hunting. But the most important thing is using all those information, right? Converting them into the MITRE framework, which basically helps you to see the threat actor group's TTPs, their tactics, techniques, and procedures. So basically, this is where I talked about previously about being familiar with the MITRE framework, the ability to map it back, right, and use this information to your benefit. So the threat hunting group should be able to do this. Looking at this, I'm able to tell at what stage of the attack am I looking at today, am I missing anything, right? So it could be two ways. Either your team is able to map this on your own, and of course check with public available research articles, or the other way around. So take for example, you collected this research article from Sophos Labs, right? So as you can see here, we have mapped the Conti group TTPs through this MITRE framework, and use this information to hunt within your environment. Do I see these behaviors within my environment? If they do, then I can assume that we have been hit by Conti group, and at which stage. So that's the type of expertise that we need within a SOC team. So basically, that's how I like to sum it up, right? We need a very mature threat hunting model within our security program, right? And I hope this conversation here really helps everyone be aware of this. And I hope that everyone will basically evolve their security programs to not just say, oh, let's buy the best tools. Those are great moves. But I think another part of the investment is finding people, right, or a team, or maybe even an outsourced service to basically help you out with that, right? Because we also understand it's really difficult to to hire like really experienced people. So come back to this question here. What's the hunting maturity of your own SOC? Is it at HMM0? No, where everyone is just relying on what the SIM brings in, right? Or is it HMM4, where your team is really very experienced? They are using the SIMs as tools, not as the main alerting systems, right? They are using them as tools to say, okay, let's look out for this information now. Let's look out for this particular threat behavior right now within our environment to see if we are under attack from this particular campaign. So let's go back to that and ask ourselves this, and there, create a more effective cybersecurity program for our own environments. So thank you so much, and I hope this session has been eventful and useful for everyone. And yeah, thank you so much. Take care.